I had first set out to do a general video about antinomy, but at some time during the script development, Kant's antinomies flew in and blasted out the significance of the rest of the video. His antinomies are so amazing and are basically the fundamental antinomies to understand. That ended up changing the subject from general definition of antinomy to Kant's four antinomies. So in the interest of understanding antinomy generally, we're going to go over Kant's four antinomies. I have a balanced skepticism towards arguments that attempt to argue that human sense experience is unreliable and are always pushing maximum skepticism about sense experience, but don't ever seem to talk about how it works, how it does correlate and produce outputs that we plan for. Kant's a beast, but even so there's many discussions to be had about the extent of the truth that he presents. How much of time, space, and the infinite, causality, and freedom does the mind fabricate, and how much is inherent in the universe? Certainly there's a reality that exists in itself, outside as well as before human experience. I haven't met a person that could convince me otherwise yet. Of course, humans can only know that reality through experience. We change that reality with our meager causal powers. But without other realities to compare to our own, we can only speculate about other possibilities with very limited information. It's still better than doing nothing, but it's a cosmically grand task. You're beaten into the tiniest, minuscule, insignificant speck of dust as a starting point, and are given another fleck of something else. And your task is to understand the entire universe with that. When I look at the arguments that Kant makes here, it just makes you feel helpless. I mean, it's Kant. This is the best that can be done with no information to go on. That's the philosophical struggle. The term antinomy refers to a contradiction or paradox between two laws, principles, or conclusions that are both logically valid but are in conflict with each other. In simpler terms, it's a situation where the two opposing ideas or statements seem to be logically correct, but they cannot both be true at the same time. It's a philosophical concept often discussed in the context of logic, epistemology, and ethics. Key points of antinomy. Contradiction. It's a fundamental conflict or opposition. Apparent validity. Both sides of the contradiction seem reasonable. Unresolvable. It's often difficult to find a clear solution. Immanuel Kant's Antinomies and the Critique of Pure Reason. Immanuel Kant's Critique of Pure Reason introduces the concept of antinomies as part of his exploration into the limits of human understanding and reason. These antinomies are essentially pairs of contradictory statements, each of which can be logically argued and supported, yet they directly oppose each other. Kant uses these antinomies to illustrate the limits of metaphysical reasoning and to show that reason alone cannot resolve certain metaphysical questions. Kant's four antinomies are divided into two groups, the mathematical antinomies and the dynamical antinomies. The mathematical antinomies deal with the quantitative aspects of the universe, while the dynamical antinomies address the nature of causality and freedom. First antinomy, concerning the world in its totality. Thesis, the world has a beginning in time and is limited in space. Antithesis, the world is infinite in time and the world is infinite in space. Explanation. The thesis argues that if the world had no beginning, an infinite amount of time would have to pass to reach the present moment, which seems impossible. Similarly, if space is infinite, it would be impossible to conceive of an actual infinity. The antithesis, however, argues that the idea of a boundary or a beginning to time and space seems equally problematic because such a boundary would imply something beyond the world, which is inconceivable. Resolution. Kant suggests that both positions can be logically defended because they both arise from trying to apply our finite concepts to the infinite, which is beyond human comprehension. He argues that time and space are forms of human intuition, not things in themselves. So questions about their absolute beginning or extent are beyond our capacity to answer. Second antinomy. Concerning the simplicity of substance. Thesis. Every composite substance in the world is made up of simple parts. Antithesis. No composite thing in the world consists of simple parts, and nothing simple exists anywhere in the world. Explanation. The thesis holds that the compounds must be composed of simple, indivisible elements. The antithesis argues that if everything is divisible, then there are no true simples, as everything is divisible ad infinitum. Resolution. Kant resolves this antinomy by asserting that simplicity and composition are not properties that can be applied to things as they are in themselves, but only as they appear to us. Thus, the concept of simplicity is a regulative idea, not an empirical reality. Third antinomy, concerning freedom and causality. Thesis. Causality, according to the laws of nature, is not the only causality. To explain the phenomena of the world, we must also assume causality through freedom. Antithesis. There is no freedom. Everything in the world happens solely according to the laws of nature. Explanation. The thesis posits that free will exists and is necessary to explain moral responsibility and human action. The antithesis, on the other hand, aligns with determinism, arguing that everything is determined by natural laws. Resolution. Kant resolves this antinomy by distinguishing between the phenomenal world, the world as we experience it, and the noumenal world, the world as it is in itself. He argues that while determinism applies to the phenomenal world, freedom is a necessary condition of the noumenal realm where moral agents operate. The fourth antinomy, concerning the existence of necessary being. Thesis. There exists an absolute necessary being which is the cause of the world. Antithesis. There is no absolutely necessary being, either within the world or outside it, as its cause. Explanation. The thesis claims that to avoid an infinite regress of causes, there must be a necessary being that grounds existence. The antithesis counters that the concept of a necessary being is contradictory and that there's no empirical evidence for its existence. Resolution. Kant argues that both sides are flawed due to their misunderstanding of necessity and contingency. He concludes that the idea of a necessary being is a regulative principle that guides our understanding but does not correspond to any empirical reality. Kant's critique of metaphysics. Kant's exploration of these antinomies serves as a critique of traditional metaphysics, which he believes attempts to extend reason beyond its legitimate bounds. According to Kant, the contradictions inherent in the antinomies reveal the limits of pure reason when it is used to make claims about things beyond possible experience. I hope this video sort of comes out okay. It's going to take a little bit of formatting to get it to come across in video form. You guys jump in the comments and talk about the antinomy.